in the wilderness of Washington. We saw 2 deer and a snake on that hike. It was actually really fun.
It's like a joke.
What?
Two deer and a snake walking to a bar.
Walking to a bar. No, 2 deer and a snake crossed my path while I'm out on a hiking trail. And I had service, because it's America. It's not that crazy to have service on a hike. And then I got a push notification on one of my news apps saying like Iran striking Israel.
What?
Like, oh shit, it's popping up. And I was like, well, there's literally nothing I can do. I'm out in the middle of nowhere with my wife, and I wanted to enjoy the day anyway. I'm like, well, the World War III can wait. I'm enjoying my anniversary week with my wife.
Greetings, comrades.
Episode 28. Welcome back.
I'm glad you said the episode number because I forgot. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, it was weird because we did not have a regular episode last week. We only had our special live stream episode on Friday night, where we welcomed Brandon from Cars and Comrades podcast and had a really great talk. That was Friday night. If you missed that one, make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the bell icon, get those notifications when we go live so you can join us next time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like and comment just to get our algorithm going.
Yeah, do all the YouTube stuff. And while we're talking about liking and following, we're really starting out immediately with the requests. To do that YouTube stuff, go follow the podcast. Like us on social media. Revolutionary Rhetoric Podcast, Revolutionary Rhetoric, wherever you get your everything. Yeah, it was really a good time. Brandon was an awesome conversation, awesome guy. It was a lot of fun.
Kind of scared me a little bit. Like he popped
intense.
up. I'm like, oh, this guy's car guy popped up, his beard like down to here, and I'm just like,
beard,
shit.
No, but he's like the nicest guy.
Super nice,
super cool.
Oh, wow,
yeah,
okay.
And then I was lucky enough on Saturday. I was on the Turn Leftist podcast, which is a big bucket list of mine. I got to go on the Turn Leftist podcast. They had an emergency episode. They live streamed on Saturday night. Because of the Iranian retaliation against Israel, the drone and missile strike that Iran attacked Israel.
Goddamn right, get them damn Israeli government officials.
I think it was that week. You were that previous. I think it was the previous Wednesday. You had gotten kind of passionate, and you were saying you just wish Israel could get a taste of their own medicine, and like 8 days later or whatever, Iran.
I still don't think they got a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah,
but here's the thing. That's because Iran, as much as I don't agree with a lot of what Iran's, state ideas are or how they run their country, their theocracy, blah, blah, blah. They still were humane and they didn't bomb civilian targets,
Well, yeah, so
which is good. That is just what we want.
Well, except unfortunately the only innocent or the only person to have been injured in those drone strikes was one 7-year-old girl. Minor injuries as far as we can tell.
Also Palestinian, Arab.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she was
so basically what happened was one of the missiles got shot. For what they understand is, or what they're guessing is, one of the missiles that Iran sent over, missiles got shot down by the Iron Dome, and shrapnel, basically debris went everywhere, and that's what injured the girl. But speaking of the Iron Dome, that thing's kind of garbage, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say shout out to the Iron Dome. It blocked like 99% of missiles. What do you mean?
No. Fuck the 99 missiles. So
is that Israeli propaganda?
I think it's Israeli propaganda because I've seen videos of like 7 or 8 missiles.
I guess that's fair.
Hitting one area at one time, right? And how many missiles were shot off?
I don't know.
I think it was like
hundreds,
300 something,
250,
ballistic drone missiles.
They had those like suicide drones,
kind of
kamikaze drones.
And it's like, if they shot down 99%, that means only 1% of missiles realistically hit, right? And if only 1% of missiles hit, we're talking about 30 missiles.
Sure.
I've seen one video where 8 missiles hit, right?
No, that'd be 10%.
That'd be 10%. Okay, so then 3 missiles hit. Yeah. Sorry, that's why I'm not in math. But yeah, so that would be like 3 missiles hit. But I've seen one video where 7 missiles touch ground. So I don't believe the whole 99%.
Yeah, thing. I guess that's fair. And I don't exactly know how many missiles were sent, but I don't think it was more than a few hundred. So yeah, your point still stands that if 99% were deflected, that math doesn't add up. It must have either been way more that were sent than is being reported, or way less were intercepted.
I think way less is intercepted.
That's probably more close to the truth. Yeah.
I'm sure a lot were. I'm sure like 70% of them were. But I mean, come on, man. 30% touchdown. We're talking about 60 missiles, 70 missiles, whatever, 80 missiles.
Yeah, and a large part of that was because it was a joint. It was like this international effort to stop them. It was, and we recognize this is kind of old news at this point. This news broke on Saturday morning. I was actually out on a hike with my wife in the wilderness of Washington. We saw 2 deer and a snake on that hike. It was actually really fun.
Sounds like a joke.
What?
Two deer and a snake walking to a bar.
Walking to a bar. No, 2 deer and a snake crossed my path while I'm out on a hiking trail. And I had service, because it's America. It's not that crazy to have service on a hike. And then I got a push notification on one of my news apps saying like Iran striking Israel. What? Like, oh shit, it's popping up. And I was like, well, there's literally nothing I can do. I'm out in the middle of nowhere with my wife, and I wanted to enjoy the day anyway. I'm like, well, the World War III can wait. I'm enjoying it was my anniversary week with my wife, which is why we didn't have an episode on Wednesday in the first place. Anyway, my point to all that is it was last Saturday. We recognized that it was 6 days ago now or something, and this is kind of old news. Well, one, we haven't had an episode since then, so we're talking about it on our show. And 2, there's been a few developments since then. We now know a lot more than we know then, which is something that we talked about in an early episode, which is it's okay to wait sometimes to report on this stuff to make sure you get your facts straight.
Exactly.
Just being first isn't always like being the best, and especially with things like this.
Yeah.
So in case in point, we now know like we have more footage of the missiles striking. We know more details about that girl that was injured. And now we know specifically what I started to say is about this international effort to stop those missiles was carried out not only by Israel and the U.S. The U.S. is like air command control is in the region, but also UK forces were involved in stopping those missiles, and Jordanian Air Force was involved in stopping
specifically the King of Jordan.
Yeah.
Declared that they would. I am sure that many Jordanian citizens would not be very happy with that.
Oh, 100%.
I know a lot of them.
The Jordan population is like overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. Yeah.
A lot of Palestinians have immigrated, have fled as refugees to Jordan.
Yeah.
And so we're talking, I think Jordan's population, like 20 or 30% of its population is Palestinian.
Really? I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah, no, because it's the closest country. We're also going to flee from the West Bank across the river.
Egypt on Gaza, and then Jordan. This is reversed for you guys, but then Jordan on West Bank. Yeah. So and then also there's new reports now that it's likely Israel hasn't announced the name of the Middle Eastern partner, the country that helped them, but one spokesman or one Israeli military member said that it was a country to the east, a Middle Eastern country, or I think he said Arab country to the east of Israel. And so geographically, it kind of has to be. It has to be Saudi Arabia, is what they're saying. In addition to Jordan, the Saudis helped the Iranian against the Iranian strikes as well.
Yeah,
which isn't surprising. Given
it's not surprising because
friendliness to the West.
Yeah, I mean they were first. Either Egypt or Saudi Arabia was the first to I guess what would be identify or accept Israel's statehood.
Oh, really? Recognize it as a state?
Recognize it as a statehood. Yeah, and I mean
Egypt, really?
It was either Egypt or Saudi Arabia.
Sounds like a Saudi Arabian thing.
Yeah, I'm blaming the Saudis. Fuck the Saudis.
Yeah, but for a lot of reasons, not just that, but also because they're fucking like a fascist dictatorship.
Yeah,
it's like
we've talked about this before.
We literally talked about this like 2 weeks ago.
It's literally a fascist dictatorship. They have there's a family that controls the entire country, and now instead of, I mean, it makes sense. They hate Iran, right? They hate Iran, so they want to do it. The fact that they hate Iran so much that they sided with Zionism, it just makes me like Iran even more.
Yeah, and
I like them a lot now. Like I am pro Iran.
Yeah, I have never really had an opinion on Iran one way or the other. They were an enemy of America, which was that's usually a red flag in terms of like what are they doing right to be an enemy of America, which isn't always the standby rule, but it's more often than not. That's a good way to live your life. But then you look at
the war, was it the late 80s where they supplied Iraq to fight the Iraq-Iran war? Remember that?
I'm not familiar. Wait.
This is the late 80s, right?
Who was fighting in that war?
Saddam Hussein.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like that's where they use like chemical weapons and stuff like that.
That was when Saddam invaded Kuwait?
No. Oh, God, hold on.
That was in like 89 when Saddam invaded Kuwait?
Okay, so actually, the Iran-Iraq war was let's see, from 1980, September 1980 to August 1988.
Okay, so that was
7
earlier than
years,
the-
10 months, 4
yeah.
weeks, and 1 day. And the main Iraqi leaders was Saddam Hussein, Adnan Khair Allah, Izzat Ibrahim Al-Duri, Tariq Aziz. So a bunch of Iraqis. Of course, not all Iraqis. These guys, I think these were like the Sunni, the leaders of Iraq. And then there was basically fighting Iran, the theocratic nation of Iran. But then,
so this is a question I wanted to pose to you prior to filming this today. Is I had a thought, and I wanted to ask you, and I don't know how much you know about this, but I wanted to kind of find out how much of this is based on, or if any, or if I'm reading too much into this, is based on the Muslim split between Sunnis and Shiites. Like, is there any like, is that a factor when you're talking about Saudi Arabia versus Iran, or well, I guess anybody in the region versus Iran, because Iran, as I understand it, is the only Shiite Muslim country, and everyone else is a Sunni Muslim. Am I totally off base there?
No. You have a general idea of what it is. I would say that a lot of the geopolitics in the Middle East are using I don't know what the fucking proper grammatical case there is. Are using religion for geopolitics. So people from the Gulf are usually what we call Wahhabi. They're Salafists. They are fundamentalists. They think the literal representation of the Quran is literally what has to be done.
And who is this? Who are
this
these?
is Saudi Arabia. This
Okay,
is
so these are
Qatar.
the Sunnis.
This is these are they are a Sunni sect, but these are like fundamentalist Islamists, and so these are like Saudi Arabians, these are Qataris, these are United Arab Emirates. This is the school of Al-Wahhab.
Okay.
So that's where you come to the term Wahhabis. When the country of Saudi Arabia was created, the Saudi family led the politics, the country, the structured country.
Yeah.
But the theocracy was created by a guy named Wahhab. That he was a teacher. The Islam that was kind of like their school of thought. That was a Wahhab.
Okay.
And that's why they're called
So
Wahhabis.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These people are like fundamentalists. Like this, what it says in the Quran, that's what you do.
Okay.
Right. Maybe it's a little easier now, a little less worse now. But then there's Shia countries, like almost half of Iraq is Shia. Right.
Okay.
So the southern portion near Basra and all that, they're Shia. Azerbaijan is Shia Muslim. Mm-hmm. And they follow the school of Jafari, right? But I think this whole religious aspect is used more for political games than it is for actual geopolitics and
like
capitalism.
Ideology? Okay.
Right? Because we have like Qatar, who is technically Wahhabi, but they're against Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Right? They're having problems with Saudi Arabia. They even called out Israel, even though Saudi Arabia aligned themselves in Israel. Sure. So what they're doing is like, Saudi Arabia is like, where's the wind blowing? Who's got the power here? How can I do a large land grab and become the dominant factor of the Middle East?
Okay, so just because you were of the same sect, either Wahhabi or Sunni or like whatever that kind of like the majority Muslim countries are in that region, just because you are in agreement on your theocracy, they're not allied. There's still political differences between those countries. And
correct.
And just similarly, or conversely, I suppose, I just looked it up. Iran is like 95% Shia Muslim.
Yes.
They're still gonna like be allied with like I would assume. I don't know the friendliness between Iran and like Yemen or
actually there are a lot of Shias in Yemen.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Right. There are a lot of Shias in Yemen, but I think that has again not that much politically to do with anything. I think the Saudis are really trying to dominate and imperialize Yemen.
That sphere of influence. Yeah.
And so who's the biggest enemy of Saudi Arabia? Iran. And so they conducted alliances with Iran to help them. It's like, hey, the enemy is my enemy is my friend.
It's Serbia, Russia, circa World War I, right? You got
Exactly.
the small Slavic country, your big Slavic brother.
Exactly.
Same principle. Okay.
And I think that's less of a problem here than actual geopolitics and capitalism.
Okay, I was just curious because I don't fully like being completely out of that world. I was just curious how much of that religious tension, because I know that at different times in history there have been pretty severe tension between Sunni and Shia Muslims. I said Shiite earlier, but I don't think it's called Shiite anymore, or it ever was. Did I misspeak? I think it's just Sunni and Shia. Regardless, I was just curious how much that difference religiously, that religious difference plays into any kind of geopolitical finagling, and I guess the answer is not much, if any.
It does, but what overpowers that is the power of control and money.
Yeah, okay, sphere of influence.
Right, so that's why even though Iran is not, Sunni or Wahhabi or whatever, they should still have way more in common and way more brotherhood with Iran and Saudi Arabia than in Israel. Israel's literally murdering other Sunni Muslims.
Yeah.
Genociding other Sunni Muslims, and yet Saudi Arabia partners with Israel.
Yeah.
So I mean, that whole political aspect is just kind of struck down. It's not real. They're just using it for politics.
Yeah, I took a couple Middle Eastern classes in college, but my Middle Eastern knowledge has been grown by leaps and bounds since October 7th. And I think that's true of most people. I mean, I had a passing understanding. I took a couple contemporary Middle Eastern classes in college. I have a vague understanding of it all, but having to go into the interpersonal differences and the geopolitical differences between Yemen and Lebanon and Jordan, and and then understanding the political groups within each of those countries, like Hezbollah and the Houthis, and then just it's pretty layered, and it's not. Yeah. When people say the region's complicated, the situation in Israel and Palestine is not complicated. It's just a genocide. But what is complicated is peeling the layers back below that, and you start getting into all of these networks of years old grudges and different alliances, because there's also, like we said, Qatar, Yemen, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria. We haven't really talked about this episode. Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I was very close to getting a minor degree in Islamic and Middle Eastern studies. I just had to take another year and a half of Arabic, but I didn't have that. I'm not going to sit here in school for another year and a half for a minor degree. I was done. I took a quarter of Arabic, and then I took a bunch of theology classes on Islam. I took Middle Eastern study classes. So that's why I know school of Hanafis and there's different types of sects of Sunnis.
Sure, and I imagine just like Christianity, it's Protestants and whatever.
And it's people oh, how are you? The Muslims in Bosnia, they drink alcohol. What the hell? They're women
smoke cigarettes.
That smoke cigarettes. They're not. Well, nicotine is not.
Oh, nicotine is not haram.
It's haram to start smoking, but once you start smoking, it's not haram anymore because you're addicted.
Okay, addiction seems like a loophole.
Right? So it's addiction is, which I kind of like that, because addiction is not for because haram means it is forbidden. It is immoral. Right?
Okay, I thought smoking was haram. Okay.
Smoking is doing any damage to your body is considered haram.
Okay.
But the moment you're addicted to something, it's not technically haram anymore. It's makruh, which means it's frowned upon. But it also humanizes it a little bit, because you're addicted to it. Why you already sinned, and you're already feeling the repercussions of that sin by addiction.
Right.
So we're not going to
continue to penalize you.
Continue to penalize you because something you can't help.
This has been Muslim Lessons with Kanan. It's a little segment.
There's a lot more, man. Yeah. There's a lot more. One big thing into this that a lot of people don't know and don't really look into is called ijtihad, which is basically, and this stopped in about the 1300s in the Abbasid Caliphate.
Okay.
It's the idea of whatever the Quran says. Ijtihad is the idea that you can then interpret that in the modern day economy, modern day culture, you can interpret it versus
dialectical materialism. You're describing dialectical materialism. That's cool. But
exactly.
But from a religious sense?
From a religious sense.
Yeah.
But the Abbasid Caliphate, I can't remember, is it Abbasid Caliphate or a caliphate that took over afterwards that was more conservative, they banned it. So Islamic thought is basically stuck in 1366.
Yeah.
Right? They couldn't progress any farther because the main, the head of Islamic thought was basically canceled out. Right. You couldn't modernize it anymore. This was it. This was this is the end all.
Snapshot of that, and then it's been the same way ever since, kind of.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Except that then there's a school, different school of thoughts, Hanafi, Jafari, blah 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 blah, Wahhabi.
Sure.
And those school of thoughts have their own interpretation.
So those are kind of the thought leaders, the revolutionaries within the religion, like a Martin Luther type for Christianity or for Catholicism, people that have come along and kind of redefined the game.
Guess so. I guess so. I would say Martin Luther, King.
No, I'm talking about the Martin Luther the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah. Guys
so I guess, that came along and said,
correct.
A new way
Martin
of doing
Luther
things.
And all the other Calvin.
Like those kind of like just guys that came along throughout the. I mean, even what's his name, Joseph Smith, like creating a new Mormon.
Yeah,
like,
but we don't consider that a new religion. It's just like how we interpret the book is still the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, even with like Protestants and like the Catholic Church schism with Protestant Reformation, it's like it's still the same religion, quote unquote. It's just a different way of going about it. It's the same God, essentially, right? It's just
100%.
to worship.
It's 100%.
Okay,
it's just
cool.
the different way interpretation.
I love learning about Islam. It's so fascinating.
And that's why like you'll see Turks are way more liberal, and Albanians and Bosnians are like drinking and stuff like that. And also it's still like it's still haram to drink alcohol, doesn't matter what school of thought it is. Right. But we're way less lenient on like judging people for it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, we got way off topic. Do you want to try to circle back to whatever we were talking about?
So,
which I don't really
World War III.
Okay. We went way off topic. Oh, yeah, World War III. So we were talking about Jordanian helping out with, and they claimed it was self-defense because I think that they originally claimed that it was because some of those missiles were going to fall in their backyards.
I just claim bullshit.
Man. Yeah, I 100% that's bullshit. I saw that and I was just like, I don't know, that doesn't really track. And then possibly Saudi Arabia helped with by I think only tangentially by allowing Israel Air Force into Saudi Arabian airspace. Saudi Arabia gave Israel the go-ahead to go in their airspace. That's conjecture, though. That hasn't been proven because they haven't given the name of the Arab country that helped them. But now to fast forward to kind of what's been going on now in the last couple of days, President Joseph Robinette Biden had talked about warning Israel against attacking. For what it's worth, Biden is just saying like, yo, just like let it lie.
Let it go.
You got your licking. They attacked you. We're good. Israel has kind of said no. And I guess a lot of the world leaders like Qatar came out and said, dude, you got to drop it. Don't drag other people into your war. And then a bunch of people are pressuring Israel to just not do anything. But just knowing what we know about Israel, I can't imagine they're going to sit down and take this.
It's just genocidal freaks.
Yeah, but they've also already kind of like announced their plans to retaliate. So I think that they would feel that they would look weak if they didn't, and that's kind of always been Israel's thing, is that kind of Napoleon complex in the region of like it's always been that's always been their mentality of like you have to show force, you have to be the biggest, the baddest military.
Oh my god,
you're surrounded.
Israel is the Middle Eastern country with the fucking huge truck. That's what it is.
100%. That's how, and like so like knowing that mentality that they have, I'm like I can't imagine, especially because they've already said that they're going to retaliate. I can't imagine they're not going to retaliate. Iran came out very in no uncertain terms, said that there would be, quote, harsh and severe, end quote, punishment for even the, quote, tiniest attack by Israel. So like Iran has made it very clear, like if Israel lifts a finger in retaliation against Iran, Iran's going to come out just like with like balls. And like we're talking like people are speculating like ground invasion, like whatever. Like it's going to be nasty.
I'm in favor.
I'm not in favor. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not in favor.
I don't war is the last option. No. But when you have genocide happening for 7 months, they died.
Then I'm fine. I'm for it.
Hey, Iran did give, so this is another update. Iran did give Israel and US a proclamation. They give them an out.
Yeah. What do you call that? An ultimatum?
Yeah, an ultimatum.
Yeah.
Basically what Iran said was like, hey, we call it good. Nobody attacks anybody else. We will not escalate further. One thing, permanent ceasefire.
Yeah.
You allow for a permanent ceasefire, it's done. We're over. No more, right? If they don't allow for a permanent ceasefire and something happens,
yeah, they're going to
get ready for hell.
So we'll have to kind of like, because right now it's a holding pattern. Iran has just announced, everyone's just kind of posturing right now, and there's really been no news on that. As of Wednesday, April 17th, 2024, there's been no movement apart from last Saturday, from this Wednesday, whatever the Saturday was, 5-6 days ago. That was the last kind of movement on this. As of right now, there's no new news. There has been other strikes. Hezbollah did a missile strike in Israel yesterday.
Did they also strike Golan Heights as well?
That I didn't see.
I read something about them striking Golan Heights while Iran was striking.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, and Yemen sent out...
another thing, too, interesting. The West Bank wall. Did that ever actually come down?
I don't know. I saw one piece of it, like, being dragged. And I was like, dude, this is, like, fucking liberation.
Yeah, I got kind of hyped just for that. Like, because if you were unfamiliar, what we're talking about is while those Iranian missiles were falling in Israel, that kind of gave West Bank Palestinians, like they got this like revolutionary fervor, and they started tearing down the West Bank wall. On the Israeli side, and I didn't actually follow up to finish like what happened, because like they just like it felt at that moment, it felt very revolutionary, and it felt like, okay, are like the West Bank, are the Palestinians gonna like
fight? Also
kind of pull what the Palestinians did in Gaza on like October 7th? Are they going to try to like bust out and like go on the offensive? It appears that kind of fizzled out and nothing really came of it. I think I would have seen more from that if it had come out.
I think you would have seen more.
If there's any update, we can kind of place an update here, but I don't think so. Anything. That was just kind of, I had forgotten about that. I heard about that, but so much has happened since then.
But it kind of just shows you what I literally said it like 2-3 weeks ago. If there is a war, or if there are other neighboring countries that are like provocating. Holy shit! Provocating Israel.
English is not your first language.
It isn't. I'm just an immigrant. Okay, please take it easy. Yeah.
It's okay, man.
I'm also not Italian, so disregard the hand motion. But yeah, it's a great chance for peace in Gaza, because for every moment that Israel is, running around like a chicken without a head as Iran is bombing them, they're not focused on Gaza. It's like a mini ceasefire in those moments. There's not bombs being dropped on children.
And that's where we keep coming back to. If like Taliban get involved, sure, fuck it. Yeah, go for it. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard or whatever gets involved, sure, go for it. Because like anything that is not genocide, that pauses genocide. Any type of like distraction, anytime Israel has to deal with something that isn't murdering Palestinians, that's a pause in the genocide. So I'm for it.
It's just like, we're going to have to take awkward allies in this situation. As fucking commies. As communists, we are the pickiest fucking people on earth. Who are our allies, who we work with. If you disagree with 20% of our rationale, you're fucking just out. You're in the gulag.
Trot.
Fucking trot, no. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm okay with the Taliban coming in and fucking, invading with boats onto the strips of Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And it's because the Taliban is not as bad as an act of genocide happening. When this all over, said and done and over, and the Taliban go back, we'll deal with them later, right? We'll deal with whatever.
Or not. It's their country.
Yeah, but if they're doing
I guess if they're doing Taliban stuff.
If they're not doing anything to bother anybody, they're not doing terrorist acts or anything like that. Fucking leave them alone. It has nothing to do with us. If their people want a new government, they will do something about it. That's none of our business. But in the moment, I will side with the Taliban over Israel, because they have some sort of moral perspective that they'll literally go over to stop a genocide by themselves on fucking rickety boats or some shit. I don't know. I'm making up the scenario here.
No, I get you. Are Taliban? I assume that's like conservative Wahhabi.
Who?
The Taliban? Are they just like conservative?
I don't know if they're Wahhabi. Okay. I know that Al Qaeda is Wahhabi.
Oh, okay.
They're Wahhabists.
What about ISIS?
ISIS are like worse than Wahhabis, man. ISIS is just dead. They're just evil people. Like you could be a Wahhabist and be like somewhat of a decent human being. You're just hyper strict with your religion, blindly following your religion. But in Islam, you can't kill people. You can't behead people. That is not part of Islam. Hence, you're not following the religion.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a contradiction in terms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the KKK calling themselves a Christian group. It's
Fair enough.
Like, you're not Christian. You're doing everything against what Christ was.
You've lost the plot.
Yeah, you've lost the plot. All
right. Well, I mean, any final thoughts on World War III?
I think we're in the eye of the storm.
What we are colloquially calling just World War III. Yeah.
I think this is the eye of the storm.
I agree. I think that right now everyone's just kind of holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. Israel's gonna any minute now, any day now attack, possibly, or not. I mean, we don't know. There's certainly more to come. This isn't over, but yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's an apt metaphor. Right now, we're just waiting.
Yeah, I think if America does not get involved.
Well, Biden told Netanyahu. Biden told Bibi Netanyahu that America will in no way assist with any kind of like military adventure against Iran.
Yeah.
America is not getting involved in a war with Iran.
Yes. If that is true, fucking full scale, please.
Maybe, but every president ever has said
Blitzkrieg.
that we're not getting into a war.
Yes.
Woodrow Wilson campaigned on staying out of the war. Like
100%. And then suddenly United, the League of Nations. What the fuck?
I mean, every president ever has said they're going to get out of the war or not get into a war.
FDR said we're not going to get into it.
Right. It's so that's of course just what. And Biden is, notoriously a liar and a fraud. So like,
yes,
and he'll say whatever he needs to.
I just wish, if it's not happening already, there's a backroom deal with Iran, Lebanon. I'm not the biggest fan of Bashar al-Assad, but like with Syria, obviously Jordan is not an ally anymore. But if you could somehow convince Egypt, to fucking back it up,
Egypt,
dude, a blitzkrieg, bro.
Egypt's been really quiet. I haven't heard anything from Egypt.
I don't know why, man. Like, just fucking do something. Say something. You got 80 million people.
Yeah, and Egypt was like the GOAT in the 50s, dude. They led the decolonial movement against England. And what's his name? The president of Egypt. He took over Egypt in like 55 or whatever, and he was the one who was kind of like led the charge.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. I just don't know
his name. Anyway, Egypt used to be kind of like put his picture right here. He was just he was like the president of Egypt in the late 50s, and he kind of started that pan-Arab movement where he was trying to get that like pan-Arabism going, and like a lot like get this coalition.
And they did something to that extent because Egypt, Iraq, and Syria became one country, but it just didn't work out. It
kind of fizzled out. But anyway, like Egypt has a history of kind of being revolutionary. So if we could kind of Egypt, get your shit together, man.
Bro, just walk into Gaza. That's all you have to do. Nobody's stopping you.
Just claim Gaza. Just be like, annex it.
Yeah. I if I was Palestinian, I'd be like, fuck it. Well, let's go with Egypt.
I'll be Egyptian now.
And be an autonomous region.
Yeah. You would be ethnically Palestinian in Egypt, in the land of Egypt.
And then just a very good autonomous region where a lot of fucking like self-preserving rights.
Sure.
Right?
Go for it.
And then
I would love to see that. That would be actually a really simple, not simple, but that'd be a very like easy solution. That's one possible
It would be
solution.
simple. Yeah. Fucking walk in. Yeah, you walk in, you sit your shoulders. What the fuck are you going to do? We have 80 million people.
Yeah, is Israel going to declare war on Egypt? I don't think
so.
Do
it.
Yeah.
Do it. I dare you. Right? But here's the thing. If you could get all those people, just blitzkrieg, 1 or 2 day thing. Just smash all military ineffective from Israel. Done. Boom.
So what you're hoping for, let me make sure I understand. What you're hoping for right now is like this, like a coalition of Arab countries right now currently planning like a blitz, a siege on Israel. To just knock Israel's like military and like technological capabilities out
in just 2 days, in just instant.
The Schlieffen plan. I'm referencing a lot of World War I stuff.
Yeah,
you fucking nerd.
We started that unit with my kids, so it's all. In my mind. We started a World War I unit in my classroom, so that's all fresh in my mind right now.
Yeah, and
I've made like 4 World War I references this episode because that's literally I'm in that mode right now. I've been lesson planning like a motherfucker on World War I. So yeah.
But Schlieffen plan.
The Schlieffen plan. That's it. But Schlieffen plan failed, as we all know, and was a catastrophe for 40 million Europeans for the next 4 years. So maybe don't follow their model. Follow your own model.
Yeah, but that's all I'm saying is like this could be just done and over.
Yeah.
In 2 days, right? And then what? They're done. When the U.S. is then going to fight the entire Middle East by themselves. But here's the thing: the Saudi Arabia, that's if
there's a lot of what do you call it?
Factors.
Peas on the mattresses. There's a lot of like wrinkles in those plans. Yeah,
because Saudi Arabia does not want Iran to have that much political influence.
They're also powerful, and they're right kind of in the middle of it all. So like they could really be a thorn in the paw of whatever is happening.
But that's the thing. It's just like you are pro-genocide then as a Saudi Arabian family, as a Saudi Arabian government.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
You are like, how are you going to call yourself a Muslim, for fuck's sake? Like, listen, I'm not religious, and I'm like, whatever. If you don't consider me Muslim, I don't care, right? But you're going to call yourself the beacon of Islam and then sit there as your people are fucking killed, the other Arabs are killed.
Well, it's the same argument we've used against Biden of like, if you either aid or abet or in any way like allow a genocide to happen, then you're just as guilty, and Saudi Arabia's by proxy doing the same thing. So we can't hold Biden to one standard and other countries like Saudi Arabia to a different standard. If
correct,
that's as a communist, it's you take an even keel to these things. You take like a scientific approach, and that's what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
There we go.
Busting out a lot of like weird metaphors, cliches today.
Just getting older and older.
Dude, I'm in a weird mood today. I guess I'm jazzed.
All right, I think that'll be it for this segment.
I think that's good. Yeah, we can wrap up this segment. We'll move on to we only really have one other story today. This might be a short episode.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. We didn't have a lot of time to prep or
we had a really good historic discussion on the Middle East.
That was a fun conversation. Hopefully, you listeners enjoyed that as much as I did. I love getting a little historical context. Our next story, and I do have a secret bonus third story that we can lightly touch on because I don't think we mentioned it yet, but we'll get to that in a second. Our second story is now about shifting gears to domestic affairs. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case of McKesson versus Doe. If you're unfamiliar, McKesson versus Doe is a fifth. Well, of course you're unfamiliar because unless you've read these articles, because nobody just fucking trolls circuit appeals for the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit.
What do you do for fun on Sundays?
Yeah, I look up appeals courts decisions from 2019.
Who the fuck is this loser?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Okay, so let me back up a second. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which presides over Texas, Mississippi, and Louisiana, in 2019 heard a case called McKesson versus Doe, which briefly put, there was a BLM protest outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is not far from where I grew up, actually. The guy who organized the protest is a local black rights activist named McKesson. It was his protest, but sometime during that protest, some unknown member of the crowd threw a rock at the police. And that rock hit the cop, and I guess it caused pretty severe damage to his jaw, teeth, nose, I think skull maybe. He was pretty fucked up. And so the McKesson was then sued by the cop, and the cop is unknown. It was I guess an anonymous. I don't really.
Yeah, they gave him the name John Doe.
That's why it's McKesson versus Doe. It's Officer John Doe is how he was referred to in the paperwork. Officer John Doe and McKesson. McKesson lost that case, saying that yes, as a protest organizer, you are responsible for the actions of anyone that shows up at your protest, which is kind of an insane thing because that literally flies in the face of the First Amendment. The First Amendment is we have the right to petition, we have the right to protest, we have the right to petition our government with our grievances via the act of protesting. Yeah. If you then hold individuals liable for the group or for unrelated individuals, right? So any bad actor can come to your thing. If I were a fascist or a QAnon or a MAGA or some kind of Proud Boy or whatever, and I see this ruling in Louisiana, Texas, then I could just be any BLM protest, any leftist protest, I'll go up, open fire on the cops, run away, and now anyone who organized a protest is liable for either manslaughter or homicide or attempted homicide, and you could just do that every time. Obviously, that's logically inconsistent with the First Amendment and just a very poor ruling by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, the Supreme Court refused to try that case or refused to hear that case, which essentially means that they are de facto agreeing with that ruling that yes, protest goers are responsible, or the protest organizers are responsible for anybody at the protest, any illegal activity, any criminal act that gets done. So what this kind of ostensibly does is ban, or not ban, but it makes protesting in Texas, Louisiana, or Mississippi very dangerous. Very I would see you're not really going to see any kind of organized protest, or at least not from anybody that's has half a brain, because what political group would want to organize a protest against Palestinian genocide or whatever, knowing that anybody at any point could come up, throw a rock at a car, and that you as the organizer could go to prison for that random bad actor throwing a rock.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. I've always heard conservatives about you have to take responsibility for your actions. Yeah. Well, this kind of flies in the face of all of that. It's not your actions, man.
It's literally collective punishment.
Yeah, it's collective punishment, and it seems to be the fucking the standard for fucking conservatives.
It's the trend
and
of where things are going, especially with protests. But there was that rule, the cars that plowed into the protesters and the cop cars that are plowing into the protesters. It seems like America has a very where at one time, maybe this is kind of romanticizing the First Amendment, but it seemed at one time everyone glorified the First Amendment, that the whole Voltaire quote of liberal democracies, the Voltaire quote, I don't agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. That type of thing of that was a pretty universal thing between left or right or conservative, Democrat, whatever. Was that we all have the First Amendment. We all have the right to protest. When it's your turn to protest, when it's my turn to protest, we all have it. and not that I'm like supporting liberal democracies here, but like if these are the rules by which we've agreed to play, then these are the rules. You can't then move the goalposts on people just because you don't like the outcome.
Oh, but they can.
But they can, and they are.
But
and that's what we're seeing is just this huge trend of like cracking down on protests in any way possible. When it's your guys, right? And when it's our guys, when it's their guys, they're paid informants and FBI actors and Antifa carrying Trump flags at the January 6th, right? Because that's what they all say, right? Everybody that's at January 6th was actually all Antifa carrying Trump flags to disguise themselves as Trump to make them look bad or whatever. That's like literally what some people believe. But anyway,
some people they've lost their goddamn mind, bro.
Yeah.
They've lost their goddamn mind.
This also gets more complicated, and like I'm not a fucking legal scholar, nor am I a judge or a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer for a long time, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
We looked it up. This goes back to a 1982 Supreme Court case called something.
It's an NAACP versus
Claiborne Hardware. Thank
yes.
you. The NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware. This is a 1982 Supreme Court case where Supreme was it 82? I thought it was 82.
You might be right.
Here we can just double check real quick.
1980. Okay, you're right. 1982.
I'm always right when it comes to these dates. This Supreme Court case ruled that protest leaders cannot be held liable for the violent actions of a protest participant because the Supreme Court said like that is congruent with the First Amendment. So I don't fully understand how this Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals can rule against that precedent. And the answer is we know that Trump packed the courts with like hundreds of judges. In his 4 years, he put more judges in the courts than Obama or Bush did in half of their term. They did more overall, but they only did a little bit more than he did in 2 terms. Yeah. He did a lot in 1 term. And so a lot of these, I mean, that's why Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't tried. Remember the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and the judge, his phone case or the judge's phone. Do you remember this? You don't remember Kyle Rittenhouse, right?
I do. No, I do. I'm not very.
The judge's phone was in a few of the shots on the TV streams and everything, and on the back of it said like MAGA or Trump 2024 on the back of the judge's case. So it's like, of course, Kyle Rittenhouse is going to get fucking acquitted. So like, yeah, that's my point. Is that these judges are just like Trump stooges, and like they're all fucking anti BLM protest. So it's not a surprise that a BLM protest. And I don't know the specific judge in the McKesson versus Doe. Maybe it was a liberal. Who knows? But I bet you money that it wasn't. And so we're just seeing this huge trend of this cracking down on kind of these what should be constitutional rights for everybody, kind of a more for me than they are for thee kind of thing.
So I think what's really going on here is so we have like the idea that we have a Supreme Court. They issued the federal law of the land. That law of the land is the supreme law. And now we have the fifth.
Yeah, it's rogue Fifth Circuit. Yeah,
the rogue Fifth Circuit basically just creating a law and doing the opposite of it. But then what's happening is with the Supreme Court not wanting to listen to it, they're allowing that law to exist.
Yeah, and so this court isn't creating a law; they're just ignoring existing law. So like the law is the Supreme Court ruling is that you cannot hold a protester liable. The Fifth Court says, "Well, I am going to hold this guy liable. What are you going to do about it?" And then the Supreme Court is then going to say, nothing. I'm not going to do anything about it. So it's not like they're not changing a law. They're just setting the precedent that if you are a protest organizer, you can be tried in those 3 states.
Well, that's what I'm saying is what they're doing is they're decentralizing the rule of power.
Yeah.
Right. But they're doing the same thing with abortion. So what they did is they basically
give it to the states.
Roe versus Wade was abolished, and now it's to the states. Yeah. Now, same thing with like constitutional rights.
Yeah.
This is abolished.
That you shouldn't be allowed to do. In theory, the Constitution is a national document. Like that's like individual states can't make their own constitutional.
So they're trying to destroy federal power, national government power, and by allowing states to basically overpower
and
the
they're not
national
trying,
government.
they're succeeding. They are doing that. Yeah.
And so now in 3 states, Texas, Louisiana, and was it Mississippi? And those 3 states now, constitutional law does not apply to you.
The First
anymore.
Amendment kind of doesn't exist, or at least this part of the First Amendment.
Yeah, the right to protest. It does exist, but it basically it makes it so hard to do it that it doesn't seem worth doing it. And that's the point. It's to deter you from protesting, and this is the one way they're doing it. And how we know that this is all fucked up is because the Supreme Court is just not allowing to hear it, which allows it to exist. And this goes back to Trump appointing so many fucking judges throughout all those circuit courts that he's basically like, okay, if we can't take democratic power over the Congress or over the Senate, the House of Representatives or the Senate or even the presidency, what we can do is elect non-democratically elected delegates like judges, where I don't need the democratic vote to elect these people. These are people who are just like the executive branch. They're just placed there, basically.
And oftentimes, I mean, these judges are up for re-election, but more often than not, they run unopposed, and nobody ever checks into them. So they either don't vote against them because they're running unopposed, or they just ignore that ballot altogether. Or because they're the only one on the ballot, they just fill in the bubble. So these judges basically they stay for life, even though it's not technically a lifetime position. They are oftentimes there. And for a little bit of context, when we talk about the Fifth Circuit, what that means is, if you're unfamiliar with how like the court system in America works, if you're either not an American listener or just weren't paying attention in your civics class that time, that day they taught this, there's city court. So like your city court. So like if you need to go pay a parking ticket or whatever, and then you have like your county court is in your county seat, like so if you're in the capital or whatever, and then you have your state courthouse, so like you have your state Supreme Court and stuff. But then there's the circuit court, which is almost like regional. So the Fifth Circuit presides over Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi in the Fifth Circuit, that particular little region.
We are here the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, in Washington we're the Ninth, and I think that's a pretty big one. It's Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, California, and Arizona, and Alaska, and Hawaii are all part of the Ninth Circuit.
Dude, that's like a third of the
it is.
states.
It's like, yeah, because California and Washington and Oregon is like huge populations. So I don't know.
That's like 7
I don't know if
million
it's based on population, because like the First Circuit is like just Maine. It looks like it's just Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. So there's like hardly any people there.
There's, I mean, just look at the fucking Eighth Circuit.
Eighth Circuit is North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, and Arkansas. That's like 7 people.
That's like half of the state of Washington.
Yeah, literally well, I guess Wyoming's not in.
I think Minnesota would be like the largest ones.
Yeah, did you know though the population of Wyoming is less than the population of just Tucson, Arizona?
Yeah,
a smallish city in Arizona. Yeah.
500,000 people, 400,000.
Yeah, it's about 500,000. Yeah. And the population of Tucson's like 750.
Yeah, but metropolitan area in Seattle is like fucking 2.
So we'll kind of see how that unfolds. It's possible that eventually this will be heard by the Supreme Court. I don't know if they'll ever take it up, or if another Fifth Circuit decision can override it. There's a lot we don't know about this because, again, we're not legal scholars, and we're kind of learning more about this as we go. But you actually kind of touched on the topic of states' rights to abortion. That was kind of that secret third story that I want to talk on. I don't know if you saw, but in my home state of Arizona, an extremely draconic abortion ban was put into place. They kind of just snuck it in Arizona. It's an abortion ban from 1864. When it was a territory, they had an abortion ban, and then the Arizona Supreme Court ruled last week, I want to say, that that abortion ban is now in effect in Arizona. So basically, Arizona was there was another state to just kind of fall to abortion. The Democratic House in Arizona, the state house, has tried to kind of repeal this ruling a couple times, but Republicans have blocked it time and time again. Is most recently of today. Today, actually, April 17th, there was another floor vote in the Arizona State House, and Republicans were successfully able to block the Democratic repealing of that Supreme Court ruling, the state Supreme Court, the Arizona State Supreme Court. So, yeah, we're just seeing this rising tide of reduction of constitutional rights, reduction of your personal freedoms, your choice to make your own healthcare. Like, fascism isn't on the rise. Fascism is here. Like, we're already living under it.
Yeah, we're just a very minor, right? We're not. It's not militaristically fascist yet.
Sort of. We kind of do. We have a hyper militarized police.
Correct.
Like we have, that's the old meme is like, if you have the right to bear arms, if a cop can kill you for seeing a gun, then you don't have a right to bear arms.
Yes.
Yeah. So like,
but what I can say, fuck the president. I can say fuck the government. Fuck this. Fuck that. Blah blah blah. For now, and you still have the right to say that. So we're not full fasci. Like we have a fasci structure of this country.
Seen, the First Amendment only goes so far.
Exactly. So we're slowly chipping away at this, right? And then you would go into like, oh, the Democrats or like the DSA members are like, oh, that's why we have to vote Democrats. We have to go to stop the flow of fascism.
This is all under Democratic president, by the way. All of this has been happening under a Democratic president with a Democratic
What now?
Senate. So
What now?
Yeah.
Well, Joe Biden is president, and this is happening.
vote harder next time, I guess.
Yes.
Go bluer next time.
Press the button harder.
Yeah. If you still think voting Democrat is going to save you, you are just so, I don't know, just misguided. All of these, and yeah, you can argue that, well, it's a Democratic president, a Democratic Senate, but it's a Republican state house. Yeah, sure, but Biden can send the National Guard anytime he wants. I mean, like, Biden can step in, Biden can make executive orders.
Bro, Obama had a super majority. He did nothing.
Obama had a majority in the Democrat the Senate, the House,
He had
Supreme
everything.
Court, and the presidency.
He had
did
everything.
Nothing for
He did
8
nothing.
years. Yeah.
That should tell you everything.
I mean,
right
he sent a lot of drone strikes to Yemeni weddings. He did that.
Yes.
So,
Oh, dude.
so
His
many Yemeni
favorite
weddings.
pastime
So many
activity.
Yemeni weddings. Yeah.
You know.
Oh
my God.
Yeah. So just I don't know. It's just don't come at me with that for no matter who shit, because obviously that's not working. What is working is getting out there and I was going to say protesting. Unless you're in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, be careful.
How about this? When you protest in all these states, oh yeah, there. Word of advice: when protesting in all of these states, you are not aligned with any specific group. If you ever get caught doing something bad habits,
Yeah.
everybody is their own person at that own protest. They are not associated with any group.
There are really good groups, probably in your area. I know there are in our area that have these kind of like quick reference cards that like have a phone number. If you are arrested at a protest, if you were out at the BLM protest over 2020, 2021, then you kind of know what I'm talking about. Probably there were these groups that were doing a really good job of like having these little like quick reference sheets of like what to do, what to say when you're arrested, what to say when confronted by police. My advice is always don't say anything.
Yes.
Sorry, officer, I don't answer questions. Sorry, officer, I don't answer questions. Just don't ever say anything without a lawyer present. Unless you've actually committed a crime, you do not have to ID yourself. You do not have to answer any questions. So.
Yes.
Yeah, just never talk to
And
police.
and hypothetically, theoretically, this is not real. If you did commit a crime, don't say what group you're part of.
Yeah, and also
All right?
just don't say anything.
Take the fucking blame because you did the crime.
Never
all
talk
right?
to a cop with or without having committed a crime, and just
Yes.
ask for a lawyer. If you've been arrested, you can ask
If
for a
you
lawyer.
did something, dog, if you did something, you threw something,
Yeah.
I threw that.
Also,
I'm not part of that group. Don't take down the whole organization with you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Also, no, I was gonna say. Also, you can always just ask if police ever ask to talk to you, if they're trying to talk to you, and you're not sure if you have to talk to them. You can just ask, "Is this a consensual conversation?" And they will then say, "No, you are being detained." At which point you just say, "Okay, then I'm not going to answer the questions." Being detained is not the same as being arrested. You don't get a lawyer for being detained. If they say yes, it is a consensual conversation, then just turn around and walk away. If it's a consensual conversation, you do not take part. So you're either it's a consensual conversation, walk away. You're being detained, don't say anything. You're being arrested, ask for a lawyer. It's pretty much a very simple flow chart of dealing with police. Those are the really only 3 things you need to know. Don't ever speak.
We should make an Instagram post of that.
Sure.
Yeah, just on Canva.
Just- Is this a consensual conversation? Yes or no?
at these protests in these states.
Yeah. Am I being detained? Yes or no? And then I would like to speak to a lawyer. What am I being arrested for? I would like to speak to a lawyer.
You are being arrested for this action. Are you associated with any group? No.
No. I don't think they would really ask that. They don't really ask questions.
But here's the thing: if they are, that group is
Yeah,
found the whole leadership is found guilty. So yeah,
That's fair.
don't pull down.
Under this law, it won't matter if you're part of the group or not. If you commit a crime, they're responsible. It's just like this
But
weird
here's
deferred.
the thing: they're not I can say this was my own thing. I'm not part of this group. I just happened to show up and see there's things happening.
Yeah.
And I don't even know who the group is or anything. But act dumb, dude. Play dumb for fuck's sake. Don't take down your comrades
Dumb as
with
you
you.
can.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty good. 50 minutes. It's not bad.
Yeah, we'll cut it short here. It's been a rough week for us.
Yeah.
Next week
I have more free time.
Yeah.
And I have
I think we're also in a dead space where there's nothing happening. All that news happened at once.
Yeah, there's no, as of right now, we're kind of in a waiting pattern. We're waiting for around. We might not even have any Israel updates, Palestine updates next week. Who's to say? I was going to say possibly I was going to dig in. The Trump trial started. I had that on the notes because the Trump trial started, I think, yesterday or the day before. We have in all 28 episodes, we have never once spoke about Trump really, or at least not in the context of his court cases and stuff. I was maybe going to provide an update. I don't know. I was going to ask, does anybody here want to hear that? But I'm in my basement alone. Kanan's the only one here. You can't answer me. So you driving to work on Monday listening to this podcast, nod your head in agreement that you would like to hear some Trump updates. So maybe I'll do a quick rundown of the Trump updates.
Maybe also an update for future videos. We might be we're still talking about it and how we're going to do it. We might be posting the full video, the full podcast, and also snippets of said podcast.
Yeah, we segment the show in these like different segments of what we're going to talk about. Usually it's like 3 to 4 kind of like big news stories that we talk about, and then we move on to the next one. Hey, you already moved on to this one. We're just going to release those as smaller videos that are kind of maybe more palatable, more bite-sized for people on YouTube, like a 10, 15, 20-minute chunk of video.
We are, like, as much as I love doing, full hour podcasts and having like this conversational tone, I also want more views. I want more distribution of our content, because when you're a commie, growth is slow. Like you're going against the grain when it comes to like corporate content, corporate infrastructure of the internet at this point. So if you see 3-4 videos after we just posted a full podcast, just know you can click on the videos, or you could just watch the full podcast.
The full podcast isn't going away.
Yeah,
exactly. The full podcast isn't going away. The full audio version isn't going away. We're just going to also, in addition, cut out and add like smaller bite-sized videos for people that want to enjoy those. And if you don't, great. If you do, awesome. With that said, thanks so much. This has been Revolutionary Rhetoric, episode 28, the one about World War III. We appreciate you for listening. Give us a follow on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Try to get those numbers up there. Revolutionary Rhetoric Podcast, wherever you get your social medias.
On the audio platform, please don't forget to rate us. It's really big on audio platforms.
Give us
it helps spread our content way more.
Yeah, give us a rating on whatever your audio platform is. Write a review. If we have any reviews written, I'd be happy to read those reviews out at the end of the show next time. If we have any, I'll have to go check them out.
When we hit that 100 mark soon enough, we could even make those reviews that we're reading part of the Patreon.
Yeah. Get us 100 subscribers on YouTube, and we're going to start a Patreon, and we'll have some bonus stuff. Have you guys come on as guests, have like bonus Q&A, all kinds of stuff we're cooking in the works.
Questions on Instagram, we could be answering them.
We can do Q&As on Instagram, as well as a lot of money we're going to be sending over to Palestine. So help us get there so we can give more money to Palestine.
All righty, guys.
Don't forget to join the CPUSA. Join any org you got. Join any mutual aid org you got. Get out there and help some people in your community. And I think with that's everything. Have a great night.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.